Welcome to Cloud Dialogues. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome to Cloud Dialogues, everyone. We're back with episode 2 of our special Agentic series, and we've got Matt as usual. Matt and
Hello. Before you go on to the next person, I just want to say it's very hot where you are, and now you have air conditioning, so that's like
I have air conditioning. You know what I did last night? I slept with my air conditioner like in my face, like it was like blowing. I had a big. It was glorious. Anyway, we're back with episode 2 of our Agentic AI series, and we are super grateful to have a good friend of ours who you may have met before if you've been with us from the early days, Pete Sbarski. Pete is our Agentic AI product expert extraordinaire, and he is going to help us talk through the different ideas that Claude and Gemini pitched that OpenAI then reviewed in today's episode. Yay! Welcome, Pete.
Thank you for having me
Welcome
back.
back. Welcome
Well,
back.
Thank you. Thanks.
it's probably long overdue.
Wow. I'm excited. Yeah,
You're like on our third.
You're an
episode or
OG.
something.
You're an OG, Pete.
I love that.
We're super grateful to have you and all your AI expertise. Before we dive into the news, I will give Pete the floor to introduce himself if you weren't here last time.
Well, Georgia, Matt, thank you for having me back. It's good to be on camera with you again, and I've been watching your show, and it's amazing that it's going, from strength to strength. Each and every time we have a new episode. So a little brief background about me. I'm an AWS serverless hero. I've written a couple of books on AWS. And for many years, I worked for a cloud guru focusing on creating great education for cloud computing. And over the past couple of years, I kind of ventured deep into AI. I worked on an incubator for AI called Hot Hands, and we actually released an app for kids called Matchbooks, which allowed kids to create books using AI. So that was very, very cool. And then I worked for another company called Cuttable, which is using AI to create interesting ads for social media. And so I've been really kind of just plunging like head first into the AI space, which has really been revolutionary for all of us, I think. And yeah, I'm sure we'll discuss a lot of it today.
Thanks, Pete. Let's jump into the news, Georgia.
The news.
The news.
My
the first
favourite.
one is interesting, which, well, you specifically found this interesting, around the legal judgment around that was put against Anthropic.
Well, they just call themselves the authors in the judgment. It's called they're called the authors. So, but obviously it's a like congregation of authors, all of which of their books were in the Anthropic catalogue. So they've been identified as being used to train Claude in the early days. I guess they still they're still in Claude's like memory, right? But yeah.
Which is pretty important.
Yeah. The crux of that is that when Anthropic first started, and they probably learnt this from ChatGPT, right? Because I think some of the founders from Anthropic came from OpenAI originally, is that one of the best ways to train models is to use books, because books are so well written and so well articulated and also very factual. So basically, one of the US courts has handed down their ruling, which says that, so there was 2 major things. One was, is it okay to use books that are purchased to train models? And I agree with this judgment. I think it's reasonable. The answer that the judges came out with is yes, because what are you supposed to tell people? You're not allowed to learn from my book. It's like training a person to think, right? It's the same as this conversation between BBC and Perplexity. It's like, oh no, you can't recall my news. That doesn't make any sense. So that's what they've said. Obviously, Claude has never, as far as we know, reproduced books in their entirety. But The court ruled yes, it's okay to use books to train AI models. But the other thing here was that prior to Anthropic purchasing the books, they procured lots of books illegally. Or what's the word for pirated books? Is there another word for this? There must be.
Oh, it's kind of like, it's probably
Yeah,
like torrented,
exactly,
but I
exactly.
don't
So
know
they
if it's actually
downloaded a ton
torrented.
of books that were pirated. I don't know what the word is. And the court has said, of course, that that's not okay, even if they were superseded by books that were purchased. And also, just for everybody's, the part of the issue here, or like part of the challenge, was that Anthropic actually went and purchased hard copies of the books and then scanned them into their databases, right? And then they disposed of those books. So that was the question as well, is that okay? And the answer is yes, according to the US federal court at this time, or that particular judge. So I thought it was quite interesting, but I think that this sort of legal activity and legislation and obviously like precedent will mean a lot for how we use AI going into the future, right? And similarly, obviously, we were talking about Perplexity versus the BBC a couple of weeks ago. I think it sort of aligns with what we were saying, is that you can't tell people not to learn from your books. What are you going to do? Charge someone every time they recall something they read on the news? This is just ridiculous. But of course, books should be purchased legally.
Mhm. What I want to see actually is the list of books that they used. I want to see the biography. I want to see what they used. I'm just
Yeah,
very curious myself.
yeah.
There's,
Uh,
there's
No, it's more than
200,000
that, Matt. It's
200,000 or
millions. There's
something, I think it said.
millions. I'm sure they said that there's millions.
Oh, it says here that in
That was the
2021
original
they
round.
used
I think that was the
9
original
library.
round. Yeah. So
Okay,
there's
yeah.
millions of books, but I yeah,
Oh,
I
5 million.
believe
Yeah, okay.
from what I understand, it's quite. They were able to identify very easily that the authors, that have taken up this legal challenge, their books they were used to train
mhm.
Anthropic. So I think that it seems like that degree of auditability is there.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's quite
Well,
very
listening to this
interesting.
conversation, I now want to
And
demand royalties from Anthropic.
Yeah, yeah,
What are they
exactly.
doing with my book?
They're
Now,
using our
that's right.
podcast to try. They
yeah,
probably are, right? They're
yeah.
probably scraping the internet and using all of this information. But that's the reality. It's like someone said the other day, I was having sort of not an argument with some people, but we were sort of discussing this, and people were saying that they disagree. And someone said, "Oh, I can't share my brain with the world." And I was like, "Well, actually, you can. It's called blogging or podcasting, or go and write a book." As I know, I'm probably a bit liberal with all this sort of stuff, but I just think, how ridiculous can we be? Charge someone every time they think about some news that they read earlier? That's insane.
Hmm.
It's insane.
Yeah. All right. Next article. It turns out that someone did an experiment and found out that Claude can become a terrible business owner.
So we won't be using Claude. I think we're going to use OpenAI, aren't we?
So they named the AI agent. They named the AI agent Claudius and equipped it with a web browser capable of placing product orders and an email address where customers could request items. And anyway, someone requested a tungsten cube.
What even is
I
that?
don't even know what
I don't
that
know.
is.
I read that and I didn't know what it is
I just looked
either.
at it. It's literally a cube made of tungsten. It ranges in price from $40 to $44,000.
I only know what is that. Oh, it's
Anyway,
just like a piece of metal.
just literally a cube.
Why would anyone
A
need
cube made of metal. Claudius loved the idea and went on a tungsten cube stocking spree, filling its snack fridge with metal cubes. And it tried to sell Coke Zero for $3 when employees told it they could get that from the office for free. Interesting. Okay. It's hallucinating Venmo address to accept payment. It looks like it went wild and did a whole heap of bunch of stuff. Anyway, lots of learnings here. I think we need to review this carefully, Georgia, to make our system
Yeah.
prompt
I
rock
still
solid.
shows that the issue with LLMs is hallucination, right? They will go off and do crazy things sometimes, And so they really need to be guarded and checked, and there needs to be multiple maybe layers of kind of security, ways to check for validity. But it's moving along. And by the way, they used Claude 3.7, right? Now there's 4, which could be better. And they did say
Yeah.
that, look, it didn't have access to financial data. There was some other information that was missing that could have been useful for Claude to know while running the business. So they have identified basically a few gaps as well in the methodology that they try to run. So it will be interesting to see if they repeat this attempt next year and year after and see how it actually improves year on year.
Yeah, interested. I would love to like review their code
Mm.
and just be
Me
like,
too.
have a look and see how reasonable it all was, or if it was really back of the fag packet, as they say. Is that an Australian saying, or is that British? That might be
Yeah.
British. It's British.
I think that's
Okay,
a British
sorry.
British saying, but we know what it means. You've been
I know
you've
it's
been
time
there
to
for
go.
too long.
I'm packing. Don't worry.
Next article is DeepSeek. Oh, it looks like Germany is trying to ban DeepSeek from the Apple and Google app stores. Well,
No,
that's not
it's not
surprising, really.
surprising.
But I mean, if you don't pay the model, obviously you are the product. So the only difference between DeepSeek and the other models is the data lives in China. So, you know, there's potentially some
But I
issues
mean,
with
Matt,
that.
if you're using DeepSeek through like Bedrock or something like that, does your data still live in China? No. Okay.
Oh,
So
no,
this is like the
no. If
B2C
you host the
version as
model,
opposed to
yeah,
like the B2B. Okay. Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
I'm assuming. I'm assuming it's
Yeah.
the
It's just
B2C
like
version.
don't use the
It's not clear, but
B2C version. Yeah, I mean, realistically, there's going to be so much data about us out there. Like,
yeah, indeed. Next article, there was it's a couple of weeks ago, Amazon announced they're investing 13 billion in data centers in Australia by 2029. That's kind of an insane number, really. I'm assuming there'll be, yeah, they're saying it'll, well, they haven't specifically said what it is, but they'll probably beef up the existing regions. And, you know, there's already a local zone that was announced in Brisbane a few years back, but
I
it's
thought
never
that
really
had gone.
eventuated yet.
Did that never go live?
No, Perth did,
Oh, I didn't even know that.
but the Brisbane one
Yeah,
hasn't.
Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, and Perth. I wonder how much of that is because I know that they obviously were embarking on like a secret cloud venture.
Yeah, they're still working on that. Yeah, that was
I
announced
wonder
last
how
year.
much of
Yeah,
that is like
so that's
expected to
probably.
service government as opposed to private sector.
Mm.
Yeah, I know. That's a good question. The other thing is that there's a bunch of investment in solar farms as part of this. So in Victoria and Queensland. So yeah, but they're committed to purchasing 170 megawatts of power
Is that
across three
solar farm?
new
Okay, so
solar
it's going to be
farms.
solar. It's not going to be wind. It's solar.
No,
Okay,
no,
that's
just
interesting. I
solar.
feel like this is going to be a increasing trend is there's going to be data centers right next to the power source because the grid is not going to cope with this requirement. Like it's just
Yeah,
not
maybe.
going to work.
So that's three new solar farms added to the other eight. Apparently, they've already invested in 8 solar and wind projects across Australia. So there is some wind, but the new announcement is solar only.
I wonder
So that's quite a bit.
how much capability organizations like Amazon, Microsoft, Google are planning to have in terms of the development of renewables technology and the deliverable of renewables technology versus how much they're going to depend on partners to just do all that for them. Because they have so much money themselves,
Yeah.
right? They probably be able to scale it quite easily and deliver because they're so big and they have so much capability. It's like, is that going to become a whole other business? It's like, obviously AWS started because they needed a ton of servers to run their book. Now they need a ton of renewable energy. Are they going to become renewable energy providers?
Well, yeah, that's the thing, especially with all the AI that uses all the power, right? But I think I think all the hyperscalers have announced
Yeah,
some,
renewables.
renewable stuff to an extent,
I
which
don't even
they
think
find it
it's out
actually
of being good
kind of
corporate citizens,
responsible.
though. I think it's just out of necessity because the
Yep.
grid genuinely cannot handle it. The grid cannot handle powering these requirements or also balancing the grid. If one of them goes offline or something happens, they're going to be in loss. So I feel like it's out of necessity as opposed to being good corporate citizens.
I think
Yeah,
honestly you're so spot
yeah,
on. I think
definitely.
we're underestimating how much power will
Mm,
be needed by the AI revolution going forward. If we thought that Bitcoin took a lot of processing power and energy,
mm.
we've seen nothing yet, given what's about to come. So yeah, governments and enterprises will have to find a way to address this 100%. So hopefully we won't fall too far back, but there needs to be serious investment, I think, now. And I mean, for Australia, solar makes a lot of sense, right?
Makes sense.
With the sun, with the
Yeah,
sun.
lots of sun.
I mean,
Although
right
it's
now, yeah,
mostly
it's a bit
wind
hard to say that, but
sometimes, but
I feel like Australia has an aversion to
that EJ.
wind. We have wind turbines everywhere
mm,
in the EU and throughout, I believe, throughout the UK and offshore as well. Like if you fly over the strait, there's like wind turbines
A
everywhere, like
lot.
in the middle of the ocean. Whereas in Australia, I feel like Australia is very averse to it.
There is some.
Yeah, there's
There is
something. I know
some.
there's some
There
in
is some.
Victoria, but like they're in the middle of nowhere, right? There's not really. I believe there's some in Victoria, but I think Australians generally are a bit averse to
Yeah,
them.
there
Whereas in
is.
the
Yeah.
UK, certain parts, if you drive through, there's just wind turbines everywhere.
basically, what I'm hearing now is that Matt, you and I, we should buy a farm somewhere rural Victoria, set up, a wind
Yeah,
farm
let's
and a
do that.
solar
Somewhere
farm.
windy.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Amazon will invest on it in it for us.
let's do it.
Let's
Not a
do it.
bad idea. I
Um,
don't know whether
the
there's something
last,
that's less. Maybe
the
it's
last.
there's
I
something.
know
There's an
maybe.
opportunity that's less hands-on here. Like I don't know. How do you like something to do with software for solar, software for wind turbines. I don't know. I don't know. I have a friend here that does insurance for them. They're like the only insurance provider in the EU for wind turbines. Anyway, yeah. Anyway,
Oh, really?
carrying on.
Um, Carrying on, our last article is the big outage of a couple of weeks ago. So Google Cloud went out and Cloudflare went out, which is probably a huge chunk of the internet. Probably, I don't even know what the percentage was, but surely it's greater than 50% because a lot of places went down. I think Google Cloud, without getting into too much detail, did a deployment of some policy and then it obviously didn't work. And then the back out didn't seem to work either. Um, and then, yeah, there was a bunch of things that happened. And anyway, they solved it in the end. But Cloudflare also went out. And the interesting thing about that, which I don't think anyone knew, was that they relied on Google Cloud for part of their infrastructure for their key value
No,
Well,
data store.
I think that Google played a big part in getting it all back up, from what I understand. Word on the street.
Yeah. Word on the street. So it turns out that Cloudflare had their outage at 2.5 hours. I don't know how long the Google one was out. Oh, 3 hours. Oh, so different regions had different outage times. The US Central one took 3 hours to resolve. So Cloudflare did a very detailed root cause analysis, and they're planning to remove their reliance on Google Cloud in going forwards.
Does that mean they're like moving to another provider, or they're just changing their infrastructure as such that it's not dependent
Oh, they.
on?
I assume they'll just. Yeah.
we
I
build it.
assume they'll just build it into their own infrastructure. They've probably got enough because originally they had to build out all their services, and so they probably didn't have everything, so they had to use other providers. But now things have moved on, and they've got quite a lot now. They just announced containers last week, so they're really actually stepping up their competition with the hyperscalers, which is going to make it very
It's very good.
interesting, I think, in the next couple of years. It's good to have competition because it keeps everyone honest.
Absolutely.
So very, very important to have that competition to make everyone better.
Apparently, interesting
So that's the news.
fun fact. Apparently, Google SREs found the root cause within 10 minutes. Quite interesting.
Yeah, but the recovery took a lot longer.
Yeah, so they knew what it was, but actually being able to
recoveries can
resolve
take-
it took quite a bit longer, right? But 10 minutes is fairly decent. It's just, obviously actually fixing it.
Yeah, the person who pushed the button was probably like,
I know that feeling so well. The whoops.
Yeah, I know.
You start to sweat suddenly.
Yeah, the sweat and the heartbeat.
Very familiar.
Very familiar. So that's the news. Insert fun music. Music transition
Open
here.
source.
Okay, so last show we talked about some product ideas and business ideas, kind of. We got Claude and
they were all so different.
Gemini to come up with some
So
ideas.
different. They were like vastly different. It's quite scary.
So just to refresh, very quick recap.
Do it.
So we had AI-powered industry-specific RFP response platform, which is not such a bad idea. Continuous compliance monitoring platform for SMEs. Problem is, I wonder what compliance it's talking about. We probably need to dig into that a bit more. It's industry-specific. Okay, so you probably want an industry-specific one, right? I suspect. Real-time B2B data quality and enrichment service.
I like that. I think it's definitely a need.
Yeah.
Every organization suffers from data accuracy problems. Every time I ask someone for a report, they go, "Oh yeah, here we go. I don't know whether it's accurate or not." It's like, why do we have it then?
So that's right. Exactly. So that was the Claude options. The Gemini options were the AI-powered paralegal for solo and
that
small
scares
law
me
firms.
because it's so regulated now. It's like,
yeah,
no,
and we don't know much about it. Option 5 is the Grant Guru for small nonprofits. And option 6 is the AI content copilot for the solo creator. So the prioritized list, so we actually gave these 6 to OpenAI to critique and generate a prioritized list of ones that we should look at. And the top one that it thought was most suitable was the AI content copilot for the solo creator. And then the second one was the paralegal. And the third one was the Grant Guru. Fourth one was RFP response platform. The fifth one was the data quality and enrichment service. And the sixth one was the compliance monitoring, so the least favourable. It says practical but least exciting from a narrative standpoint, which I kind of agree with there. So the first question is, do any of them stand out? Is there anything that you liked there, Pete?
So it's a good question. Do you want something that's achievable and doable, or do you want something that would be fun?
I feel, so this is the thing, I feel like,
That's right.
because the concern that I have about B2B is that we're not going to be able to sell it. Therefore, the narrative is not going to have a conclusion. You know what I mean? Like, because I wouldn't put something in my production systems that's made by AI agents and like publicly everyone knows that, right? This is the thing, is we want to be completely transparent. So that's the concern that I have with B2B, especially things like the paralegal stuff. I don't know if you saw in the UK, it's now a disbarable offence to use hallucinated. So I want to avoid anything that's, but I also think some of those problems, like the data enrichment, there's another couple as well. It comes down to data governance. And I am sure that there are technical solutions that would help with data governance. However, again, I don't want to touch corporate systems because that's high risk, right? That's where I think the co-pilot for creators thing is kind of cool because it's B2C, so it's lower risk naturally, right? And as someone that creates
Yeah.
content myself, I can see how that would be useful. But that's just my thoughts. Tell me your thoughts.
No, it makes sense what you're saying. But if I quickly run through the list that you created there, which I like actually, I like it a lot. I think the RFP one is definitely doable. And I will be shocked if there isn't a company that comes out in the next 6 to 12 months that does that exact same thing.
Does that?
Because 100%, because it makes sense, right, to suck in the data that about your company, right? And then you go to apply for an RFP, and the RFP is generated automatically because the agent knows what your company does, it knows what the company can do, answer all the questions, it can maybe go out and do some additional research if it needs to fill in the blanks. So I am quite confident that we will see such systems appear in the near future. That's just from kind of like a
Mm,
standpoint of what's achievable technically. But yeah,
And it's lower risk too, right? Because you can
yes, it's
review it
definitely I
after
feel
it's
like
been
lower risk
created
than
and
doing a
make any
legal
changes.
one, which feels very fraught with issues, right? That can hallucinate
that
anything,
scares me.
and then we all go to jail, and that would be sad, right? We don't want that. So I think RFP one makes sense. Is it fun to implement? Maybe not. I don't know. It does feel a little dry, perhaps. The
That's right.
continuous compliance monitoring one, kind of interesting as well. Maybe a little dry, also. It's just like, does anyone really love compliance? I mean, I'm sure there are people who do love compliance a lot, but I feel like you have to
They
be of that
definitely are.
particular
It's not us.
nature. Yeah, I don't think I'm that person either.
No,
I
we're
admire
not.
people,
We're not those people.
I admire those people, but I don't think I can be one of them, to be honest. Um, then the B2B data quality and enrichment. Interesting. I kind of like it, but I think the challenge there will be getting the data for the enrichment, right? Where do you
Mm,
get that data from? And what
And
type,
what type
rather
of
than the
data?
actual
Yeah.
building an agent to do something with it. Although maybe that's an opportunity for you to create like a clone of Perplexity, right? Perplexity.ai uses agents to go out and basically it does a deep web search, it creates a research plan, then it does 20, 30 web searches, maybe it searches social media, then it synthesizes all the results together and prepares a report, like a deep research report that you then get to see. Now, as a project, that's kind of interesting and it's very doable, and maybe it could kind of like be part of this project if that's what you decided to do. Then if we go on to the next one, the paralegal one, I think we decided no, that's like a killer,
too
and
scared.
said we don't want to go to jail, so let's not do that. um, the grand guru one, it's kind of like the RFP one in a way.
Yeah, I
Pretty
agree.
cool.
I
In a
agree.
way, yeah.
It's same thing really. It's just filling out a form based on your understanding of a particular company or entity, which again very doable, I believe, and I think we will have companies that do this exact thing. And then the final one, of course, is the content copilot, which also makes a lot of sense. And I feel like I've seen companies that are starting to do this already right now. And I think the challenge there, I think would be a super fun project, but the challenge there is how do you make it not look like AI, right? Because whatever content is created, you don't want to make it feel like, it's just more AI generated slop. Like people are
Mm,
sick of it. So that's going to be a
Mm.
question. How do you make it feel genuine? How do you include a human in the loop? How do you kind of just make it engaging? Like this podcast, for example, right? Um, but maybe that's an idea worthy of consideration.
The,
So I think for me, the fun one is the content copilot or the RFP slash small grants one. Those are the ones that I think I would tackle personally.
so basically, with the RFP response thing and the data enrichment thing, I feel like both of these, the problem actually stems from data governance, right? Is that you don't have good data governance in place. Are there ways that agents and AI could help that? Yes, I think that there is. I'm just not sure. Like, for instance, say if an agent can go and say an agent can go and understand, like, I'm a consultant, an agent can go and understand when my project is finishing, or maybe it knows that I've got like a significant checkpoint with a project coming up, and it will, come to me around that time and say, hey, you finished that piece of work, can you upload it to your like data? And then maybe it knows that I was doing some work with defense or whatever, and it says, okay, do we need to like read through these documents and just redact some things before we upload it to our, data warehouse of customer projects or whatever? And then that's but to me, that problem is a human behavior problem, and I think that's what the core of that is, right? Is that you don't have your information in the right place, you don't have the right human behaviors when it comes to keeping that information up to date. Are there ways that AI can fix that? Yes, I think that there is. But again, I don't know how organizations, I would, if I think most of the organizations that are doing this are going to be quite risk averse, which means that they're probably not going to be too excited about having agents running around in their environment, effectively prompting people to move potentially sensitive data around. That would be my take on it, but I'm happy to be wrong.
No. I think what you said is true. A way to make it work potentially is to have an agent within your corporate environment, right? And then you upload data, you upload your documents to that agent to kind of parse and understand. And then you just have to curate the data that you upload into the agent as best as possible, right? Because you're right, if it has the right data, it will be able to fill out a form, whether it's an RFP or whether it's a grant application. It just needs to have that data available. So there is that element of choosing the right data, uploading it, making sure that the agent can process it, and that's fine. That's very doable. We can use RAG and a bunch of other techniques, and then the agent can go out and fill out an application, for example. Other ways I've seen people do this is that they connect like AI agents to Slack, for example, and then they get
Yeah.
all of the Slack conversations, and that's how they build kind of like the knowledge, the corpus of all the conversations happening in the company. So then the agent can go and answer specific questions or fill out a form based on the conversations that happen like within a Slack environment. And it's not optimal. Sometimes you will get, weird things popping through and hallucinations
Yeah,
happen,
of
and
course.
sometimes you get, conversations that are not really correct. But yeah, basically it's having the data, right? If you have the data, then you can build it.
And it might be like, say, for instance, if you're working on stuff that's sensitive, therefore it can't be more broadly shared. It might be like, oh, well, there's some work going on in this sector, go and talk to this person, right? Like, it might not give you the information. It might say, this is sensitive, you can go and talk to that
Oh, yeah.
person. Or
Yeah,
something.
it might tell you who to go
Yeah,
to.
or it
Yeah.
might be in motion, right? Because I'm talking about large organizations, obviously. Like, there's some work going on that's in motion, therefore we don't have artifacts yet, but it could be something that would be useful. Because I feel like that's a problem as well in a lot of our large organizations, is like, then like, in terms of work that's going on, people are not good at knowing who's doing what, especially
Yeah.
in high velocity environments. So we're not always connected up in a way that's useful, and that might be another way that they could help.
One other thing you could potentially think about here is that you can make a chatbot, which will try to go out and fill out like an application form, an RFP, and then it'll tell you when it's missing data. So it'll be like, hey, you know what? I cannot actually answer these 7 questions, and it feels like the people in the company who should be able to answer these questions. So can you get this and this and this for me? And it could be examples of other projects. It could be, I don't know, something that is needed by the application. But you can actually build an agent to guide you. So not necessarily to answer everything, but at least to kind of supervise the
Yeah.
construction of the application process, which
And give you a
give you a
checklist.
checklist, validate whether you have provided enough information based on some metric, and kind of just like, be this overall supervisor. So it could be just like another angle.
Yeah. No, I do think there are ways that agents could help. I feel like with those couple of ideas, it's the same problem though. Like the problem that they're trying to solve at the core is human behavior.
Yeah. It's always a scramble at the last minute, right, to get all the information from the right person.
What are you
to fill
talking
out
about,
the
Matt?
RFP.
I've never experienced this.
I think we've all, I think we've all been there, and maybe some of our listeners have too.
But imagine if an agent, like, it's trying to fill out the application form, and the agent is broadly aware of different people and their responsibilities. So it could actually email you, George, and say, hey, I'm
Yeah.
trying to fill out this application form,
Can you
and
help
I'm
me?
this particular bit of detail. Can you just reply to this email with attach a document or give me some text I can use? And that's it,
Yeah.
right? And then maybe it goes to Matt to ask another question that is in Matt's domain, not your domain. And so that is the kind of like the orchestrated, the octopus that goes out. And but again, of course, you need to have like a proper index of all the people and what they're responsible for, and for it to be able to.
You'd have to feed it. You'd have to feed it that information as part of the corpus, right?
Well, you could like share documents to the agent, right? You could be like, agent,
Definitely.
here's all these documents with
Definitely.
or like case studies or whatever of stuff that I've done. Go and use that and create something, as opposed to like, because
Absolutely.
sharing of stuff is like one of the biggest problems in large organizations, I feel.
Yeah, exactly. It is hard. Well, we've talked about that one the most, so it probably makes the most sense. Was there any? Did we?
Well, it's either that or I feel like the content copilot is interesting, but it depends on
content
what you
copilot.
want to do with it directly. Whether you want to generate ideas, whether you want to just help you produce content in terms of scheduling and other things.
For me, it would be like, because obviously I have like sharing on different platforms. It's like I know what I'm going to do over the next month, right? Like I know what my calendar looks like over the next month. When I look, if I can get an agent to look at my calendar and go, what's really like Instagrammable for my audience? You know what I mean? To like go and do the research. What am I doing? What do I actually need to? So it's not actually about AI creating the content. It's about AI like doing all the planning and the preparation, as opposed to actually, because I agree. I think that there's so much AI created content out there. For me, it wouldn't be about creating the content. It would be about like, how do we make sure that the content gets created? It might play a part in like editing, but I do think that the problem with that will be that the cost of compute will just be insane, and it will be like unworkable from it. But that's why I think it's more of a like, it's more of like it's like a content assistant as opposed to like a content creator. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like example, this is a really silly example of this, right? A few weeks ago, I went and had a non-surgical facelift, right? This is like very Georgia example. And everyone asked me, what is it like? What is that experience like? Is it painful? Like, how long does it take? All this sort of stuff. I should have actually just blogged about it. And then when people ask me about it, I just tell them, I go and look at my blog. Yeah, and I should have, right? And my bloody aesthetics lady would have loved to like help put that. She would have loved that. Like, it's all this sort of stuff that, and it sounds stupid, but for creators, that is like really helpful, right?
Yeah. Well, here is an idea based on your idea right there. You can build an agent, and you can upload all episodes of your podcast to the agent. And you can get the agent to extract, first of all the cool other ideas that you and your guests have mentioned over all the episodes, right? You can get it to extract all the interesting potential blog posts that could be written based on what you and the guests have said, right? And it's great, obviously, at summarizing and extracting interesting bits and pieces. So you can produce really interesting, I don't know, maybe little TikTok videos or something, just based on the information that you and the guests have said. It's not like AI generated, but it's AI extracted
Still real.
or identified.
Summarized.
AI assisted.
But you can get AI assistant to go and find the best, like the juiciest bits that you have all said that might be of interest. And it's actually very good. Like if you use Gemini, so Gemini allows you to upload the entire video. So it's the only LLM that supports like a video modality. So you can upload the entire video and you can say, hey, go through this thing and tell me what are the most interesting bits, like most interesting 30-second segments that you can identify. So you can kind of like just try playing with it in that way. And suddenly you just have this whole bunch of content, TikTok and Instagram potentially, based on the actual content that you have already produced. So that's another way maybe of thinking about it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's good
Hadn't thought of it
for
that way.
I've actually got all of our, like most of our, I don't have all of our episodes, but I have a lot of our episode summaries in like a data pool that I can draw on because I just find it to be so useful. Like, when did we do this? Or like, when did we talk about that? Or like, what did we say? Like, because it is, there's a lot. And over time, you're right, you generate a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And obviously
So
Opus Clip is good at like pulling some of that out, but it's not necessarily like aware of what's going on in the world,
yeah,
what's relevant.
yeah. I mean, you could honestly just have a transcript of every episode created
Yeah,
and then have
yeah.
an agent go through the transcript and extract top 10 most interesting bits that were said. And you'll obviously have timestamps so you know when those things were said. And suddenly you have a whole bunch of new content that you can publicize.
Yeah, content reuse is something
Interesting.
that we're not always good at. Yeah, having enough time in the
Yeah.
day. I need another. I need an AI. I need a George AI. That's my
Oh,
idea,
Georgia
Pete.
AI.
I need a George AI.
I like it. I like it a lot. But maybe Georgia
A
AI
George
will
AI.
identify the
George
most
AI.
interesting, snippets and then extract them. So maybe you can use MCP, for example, and MCP allows you to interface with other tools. So, for example, first part, you go through the video, identify 10 most interesting segments. And then second part is using MCP. It will drive FFmpeg, which is a utility for creating or modifying or extracting video, right? To go and actually extract those 30-second or 20-second segments. So you don't actually do anything, right? You just tell the agent, find me 10 best parts of today's show, today's episode, and extract it into this folder. I want 10 videos, 30 seconds, not longer, and it will for you
Yeah.
via MCP, and then you don't have to do anything yourself. Um, oh yeah, and then third step could be uploaded to TikTok or Instagram with a funny headline or something. So that could be a really interesting agent that reuses your existing content because you've got so much good stuff here. Like I've seen your other shows, Joe Emerson or whoever. Like there's just a lot of great information that you should around.
Yeah, and sometimes stuff comes
Yes.
up that's relevant, right? Like something's happening in the world that's relevant to something that we've spoken about previously, and having the time to go back and find it and then turn it, it's just like it just doesn't happen in our world. Like,
And other people would have this same problem,
Yeah.
right? So
this is
plenty,
true.
possibly not our audience, but I don't know.
But
It's still interesting
people
though.
do, Zoom sessions, meetings, phone calls. Obviously, people want to
Oh
have
yeah, that's true.
transcripts, which a lot of tooling does these days. But then the next part is like, what can you do with it? Once you have the transcript, can you go and
Yeah.
find that particular
Yes.
little segment so you can listen to it? Or like, can you get like a summary or like top 10 most interesting parts? Because, there's transcript is only the first step, right? But then what do you do with it after?
Yeah, that's right.
That's where I see
There's,
for the RFP response type stuff as well. That's an opportunity there because we use Copilot to like listen to our meetings, right, and to record everything. But actually going through that and going, hey, you said you're working on this, but I don't know anything about that, and someone over there is looking to something. Can you guys, can we link up? Because you know what I mean. Like, this is a sort of, it's just like taking it to the next stage.
Oh, that would be amazing. Imagine if you just have a bunch of meetings, right? And the agent then listens to your conversation, starts filling out the RFP, and then it goes, okay, so Georgia had something interesting to say about this, but I need more information from Georgia. Let me email her. or call her. Like AI can call you, no problem there. It would be, but it can work. You can use Amazon Connect or whatever, and then you
Yeah.
talk to the AI directly, right? And it just adds whatever you said into the application. So like there's cool stuff you can do there too.
I think it is a good idea. Like, how would we find a test bed, though? How would we find a test bed, Matt? Did we touch on which ones did we miss? We spoke about the paralegal.
Yeah, they're kind of all Grand Guru. Was that?
I feel like it's the
I mean,
same
that's similar
thing.
to
I
the
feel like it's the
RFP.
same thing. It's the same
true.
problem that they're
It
trying to
is.
solve.
You're right.
Oh no, you're right. I think we have
The
actually
rest
covered
of it,
everything.
we've
But
discounted.
I feel like we have to
yeah.
make a decision, guys. I feel like we have to make a decision in this episode. What is our decision? Like,
Or we could just sleep on it and decide offline.
you think?
I'm kind of leaning towards the AI content copilot after.
You're leaning towards
Pete's
that?
sort of-
I feel like I'm
'Cause
thinking
that's-
more about the RFP thing now, but I think it's got
That's right,
challenges, but I think
So I prefer that one.
You've made us swap
I'd
around,
prefer that
Pete.
one.
Is he wanted to do the other, I wanted to do it. Now we're
That's hilarious.
It's an experiment. It's not a
but
real thing.
also
Yeah, I mean, and you could test the other one by literally applying for a grant for something like startup grant, or you could
Yeah.
have a particular use case. You can actually aim. You can find a grant you want to apply for, like literally, right, in Australia or UK, and aim the bot at getting that kind of grant completed. Like you can test it that way.
That's actually not a bad idea. That's actually not a bad to test out something that we could just build very quickly, right? Maybe that's the outcome then, Matt, is that we're going to go away and run a test.
Yeah. For the Grant Guru, is that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we could also run a test on the content creator one. We could just do a test on
yeah, that's
both
true.
of them
We could do both, yeah.
and see, oh God, this is going to be a nightmare. Okay, this is going to be a nightmare. We might need a couple of weeks to try and vibe code.
Oh, yeah,
To try and vibe code our way out of this. All right.
Okay, so we'll close up by deciding. Hang on.
To do a test.
We'll do a test.
And
we're going to do a test.
Yes, we're going to do a test because we're MLP themes.
That's right.
And then we're going to come back to our next episode with the results of the test and a decision.
Thanks for the insights. You've given us a lot of food for thought, Pete, that we hadn't considered. So this is why you're here.
I'm more scared now. I'm more scared now. But I'm also more excited.
That's important.
Honestly.
And it means we need to schedule our time very, very closely over the next couple of weeks. So we will run an experiment. So we're going to look at, we have a whole bunch of content for our podcast that everyone's listening to right now. So we might look at the AI content copilot for the solo creator, taking inspiration from Mr. Pete Sbarski on, video. And we also have obviously a archive of videos and
transcripts.
We'll make sure I've got all the transcripts available and see what I can do. But we also, interested in the Grant Guru for small nonprofits as well. So maybe we'll look at that.
But I feel like
that's a
RFP response thing as well, right? It's kind of similarly. So I think the RFP response and the Grant Guru,
they're pretty much the same
are
sort of thing.
basically like a data governance in your organization. So we have some really good friends of ours that have got a health tech startup.
Yes.
So what we're going to do,
right.
we're going to deploy an agent into their environment of stuff to go and respond to an RFP. Find grants to respond to. Find a grant to respond to, or an RFP. We'll have to, or maybe just some sort of proposal, and see how it goes. And then equally, we'll go and deploy some agents into our archive of content, or I don't know, maybe George's archive of content, because
Yep.
There's a couple of options here, and see what the outcome. This is going to be a nightmare, but I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, so that's the outcome. So today, and I think it's been an interesting discussion. Thank you for coming on, Pete.
pleasure.
We
Thank you for
really
having me.
appreciate
Thank
your
you,
time.
Pete, for joining us again.
This cold Sunday evening that we're
Oh, I
recording,
wish it was cold here.
sit in front of the aircon. And so until next time, we'll not, we'll probably be a couple of weeks getting ourselves organised. But
Send us your ideas.
Yeah, we'll come back.
Feedback.
Yeah, send us your ideas and anything else, any other ideas that we hadn't actually considered.
Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter, clouds-dialogues.com.
So we sent out a newsletter this week. So subscribe and you'll get the next one.
Yeah, and on that note, everyone that subscribes is going to get the drop of the episode 2 days early. So
Yep.
do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And till next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.